Travelling with your bike is not always an easy option. Maybe you don't have a bike box or a bike bag, or don't feel that confident taking apart your own bike. Plus, an airline, they are going to charge you normally a premium to put your bike on that flight. This is where a rental bike could well be a great option for you. So today we're going to run through how to set up a hire bike when you go abroad. Measurements. Before you travel, make sure you've got them as accurately as possible and keep them with you. You don't have to, guard them with your life, but make sure you don't lose them. What I always do with all my bikes, actually take a photo of them and then I print it out. All right, this one I haven't done because this is Hank's bike, but you know what I mean. So you print it out and you actually draw on there the dimensions. Therefore, you've always got them. In the case of me at home, I've got them all around my workshop for different bikes, so I know how they're set up. Believe it or not, each and every one is set up slightly different because of course the geometry does vary. So let's run through those measurements then that you should be doing. Firstly then, we're going to measure the saddle height. Now for this, you always want to measure it from a specific point on the saddle. Now you can choose that yourself exactly where you want to do it from, but bear in mind, the reason we do this is because if you measured from the tip of the saddle to the centre of the bottom bracket, went off on your holiday, got the rental bike and then measured it from the centre of the bottom bracket to the back of the saddle, you're going to get vastly different measurements because of course you're measuring in different angles. So what I do on my own bike is actually use a permanent marker and choose a specific point there on the top. Now in the case of this bike, I'm not going to do it to Hank because, well, it'd be like graffitiing his bike, wouldn't it? And another way of measuring, which I have seen a few mechanics out in Belgium during my time do, is actually to measure from the saddle rails down to the centre of the bottom bracket too, because I think they found it a little bit more accurate to do that because you actually have something to loop the hook of the tape measure over. Something to also consider is the measurement of the tip of the saddle and how far it is behind the centre of the bottom bracket. So you can see here, I've got a homemade plumb line, a bit of string with a coin tied to the end. So I've got it on the nose of the saddle and it's dropped down. So if I was to tape that on there, I can just measure that nice and simple. Way easier to do it on the non-drive side because of course you don't have the chain set getting in the way and causing you all sorts of grief when you're trying to get that fine measurement. Now this measurement isn't necessarily going to play hand in hand and nicely with the next one, and that's measuring the distance from the tip of the saddle to the centre of the handlebars, because again it all depends on that geometry and how much you obsess over your position. Personally, I don't care that much about how far behind the bottom bracket my saddle is. For me it's always been about the reach, so that distance from the tip of the saddle to the centre of the bars. Handlebar height and the way that I measure mine is done with the following method. So I find the centre of the handlebars here at the front. I mean, this is an integrated unit, but you can always see where the centre is. Just hold that there and then measure down to the centre of the front axle, and that's going to give you a measurement to take as a reference. And the reason I wouldn't do it with the back of the stem is that if you've got a stem on there with a different angle, of course it's going to give the centre of the handlebars a different height from the actual front axle. So if you have a -17, well, your handlebars are going to be a couple of centimetres lower, so that's not going to give you any help at all. Now you may want to measure as well how much lever pull you have on your brake levers. So if you've got disc brakes, well, you don't really have the luxury of being able to fine tune that quite as much as if you've got a rim brake. But don't worry, just simply hold the measure there and measure that distance. Again, find a specific point that you can always take reference from. So on this one here, you could measure just there from the Di2 paddle shifter and just take that measurement. It's something to work from. And then also you could take a measurement here from the tip of the blade of the lever down to the front axle, and that again is going to help you with your lever height position. Now, there's a few things you should be taking with you, of course, and one of them, which I highly recommend, is your saddle, because there is nothing worse than an uncomfortable one. So what I would do though, before you take it off your bike, grab again that marker and just mark on the actual saddle rails either side of the seat clamp assembly, so that when it comes to refitting it, you know exactly where it's come from. So try and put that in your hand luggage too, because obviously you don't want that to go missing if your bags were to, and you can still go out for a ride. And finally, maybe your saddle has a bit of an angle to it that you find most comfortable. So using a smartphone, most of them these days, you'll be able to download an app onto it with a spirit level, therefore giving you that accurate information to again note down on your bit of paper. Pedals. These are a really personal choice, and again, don't take the risk that the hire company is going to have those exact same ones set up with the same spring tension and everything. So try and put them in your hand luggage along with your shoes and your saddle, so when you get to the other end, it's easy and you can just go out riding. Now, Something to consider when you're actually fitting them into the cranks is the crank length on that rental bike. So if they are different from your ones on your existing bike at home, you may well need to adjust your saddle height to take up that difference. Right, finally, communication is absolutely key. So talk to the hire company before you go away and give them all of these measurements. In fact, why not take a photo of them, send them over so they've got it. The more in advance they've got it, the quicker when you arrive, you can go out riding. Now take that from my personal experience where I used to manage a workshop and we used to rent bikes out. If a customer provided all of that information, it was way less stressful than when they arrived, desperate to go out and you had to set up that bike. Go through specifics too. Check if they can change the stem length to match your position, as well as finding out, this is ultra important, which way around the brake levers are cabled or hosed. The reason being, well, here in the UK, we have our brakes around a different way to the rest of the world virtually. So just check with that because obviously you don't want to come a cropper on a rental bike, do you? There we are, just a few simple and basic measurements and things to take with you will make your cycling holiday oh so special. Now let me know though, have you been on a cycling holiday and well, maybe you've got a horror story actually because you forgot to take all those measurements. I don't know, let me know though what you think of the video down there in the comments section below. Don't forget to like and share this video with your friends, and why not check out the GCN shop at shop.globalcyclingnetwork.com. You can buy one of these brand new workshop aprons. Looks pretty cool if I may say so myself. And now for 2 more great videos, how about clicking just down here and just down here.